Հանուն Հոր եւ Որդվո եւ Օգվույն Սրբո Amen. Dear brothers and sisters, today is the fifth Sunday of Advent. In Armenian, it is called Hisnak. In the past, we learned that Advent is that special period that comes before Christmas to prepare us for Christmas. And during this period of time, our church has several important readings from the letter to Hebrews. Hebrews is a letter written to all the Christians, not only to specific Christians. For example, the letter to the Corinthians was written to the Christians who lived in Corinth, but the letter to the Hebrews is written to all the Christians. And in this letter, Jesus is presented as the Son of God, who became the eternal high priest. This letter, Hebrews, uses very sophisticated and high language to present us Jesus Christ as someone who is like us, a human being, born of a woman, a Virgin Mary, and who is also unlike us because he is the Son of God and called to be the eternal high priest. Today's reading is taken from the letter to the Hebrews chapter 5. We read, "Every high priest chosen from among mortals is put in charge of things pertaining to God on their behalf, to offer gifts and sacrifices for sins. He is able to deal gently with the ignorant and wayward, since he himself is subject to weakness. And because of this, he must offer sacrifice for his own sins as well as for those of the people. And one does not presume to take this honor, but takes it only when called by God, just as Aaron was. So also Christ did not glorify himself in becoming a high priest, but was appointed by the one who said to him, 'You are my son, today I have begotten you.' As he says also in another place, 'You are a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek.'" In this reading, my dear brothers and sisters, we see two important things that are going to become our lessons today. The first one is that Jesus is presented as someone who is like us, as a human being. And second, Jesus is chosen and appointed by God to be our high priest, but a different kind of a high priest, an eternal high priest. Let's take the first point. Jesus is like us, a human being. In verse 1, we read that the high priest was chosen from among the people, himself being a human being, to offer sacrifices and to offer offerings on behalf of his people. If we go to the Old Testament, who were the priests? The priests were those people who offered sacrifices for the people of Israel in the temple. The priest had to be from the tribe of Levi. Remember, the Israelis had 12 tribes. And so the priests were those men who had to be from the tribe of Levi, and they had to be the descendants of Aaron and his sons. Now the high priest was chosen from the priests. He was not only the religious leader of his people, but when The Israelis, when they lost their kingdom, the high priest also became their national leader. And his job was to offer a special sacrifice on the Day of Atonement, once a year. So the high priest had the job of the mediator. Do you know what does this word mean, mediator? The mediator is the person, usually a third party, who intervenes when two people or two parties have conflict. And the mediator intervenes and tries to make an agreement. He works so that the two groups in conflict find ways to reconcile, to come to agreement. Now some of you might say, it is just a couple days and we are going to celebrate Christmas. What does all this mean? We are going to celebrate the Christmas. And Christmas means the opening of a new scene. So why our church has still readings from the Old Testament and talks about priests, high priests, mediators? Well, the high priest presented his people. He was a human being. He was a different kind of a mediator. He wasn't a third party because he offered sacrifices on behalf of his people and also for himself. And the reading is trying to say that Jesus is like the high priest, born of a woman, himself a human being. Do you know what does it mean, a human being? It means that Jesus had a distinct DNA. Jesus had special face features. He had special weight and height. He had a special personality. The characteristics of a human being, a man. So this is why the first point is that Jesus is like us. What is special here? You might ask. Well, the special thing here is that I don't know of any religion whose God doesn't try to solve the problems of its creatures from above, as we sometimes imagine, but intervenes in human history, becomes like one of his creatures, tries to experience what they experienced, tries to feel the way that they feel. This is the mystery of Christmas. This is the greatness of Christmas, that God entered through Jesus Christ the human history, the imperfect, the messy world of the human beings. Do you know, one of the problems that I see in modern day Christmas and Christmas celebrations is that Christmas has become the season of the year where we hear and read a lot about ideas, abstract ideas. Justice, mercy, love, peace, etc. So people say Christmas is about these good things that all of us wish to have in life. Not only that, people have the tendency during Christmas to try to make their lives look perfect, special, orderly, clean. So that's why you see lots of decorations, Christmas trees, variety of foods, everything perfect, okay, Christmas celebrations, everyone wears the best that they have. And in a way, Christians try during Christmas to make Christmas look something special, perfect. Now let's look at the birth narrative. We said that God entered human history through a virgin, a woman. What does that mean? It means that a childbirth happened. I am a father, and I know what does that mean. It means tears, it means blood, it means anger, it means joy, it means happiness, it means anxiety. The parents will think about the next steps in their lives, the challenges that they are gonna face. And this is the same thing that Jesus' parents faced. So there was nothing special. There was nothing that was out of normal. There was nothing great about that. That was just a childbirth. And it wasn't even something good. They didn't have a good experience because they didn't find a good place to have that childbirth. That's why the childbirth happened around animals. Do you know what does it mean to be in a room where there are multiple animals? It means bad smell. So here are Jesus' parents having this child around animals, the anxiety that they feel, the uncertainty that they have, the atmosphere not very encouraging, and suddenly there are unexpected guests like the shepherds and of course later the Magi. See, we try to make Christmas look perfect, with order, clean. We try to cover the messiness of our life. We try to forget that part of our lives during Christmas, during this season. But when we look at the birth narrative, we see the messiness, the disorder. We see all the crazy stuff that happened. What does all this mean, my dear brothers and sisters? It means that if I am a Christian, and around this time of the year I am celebrating Christmas with my family, with my friends, and I have in a little corner of my head the anxiety, the thought of how much is left to pay off my mortgage, so I'm concerned about that. The fact that we are going as a family to have our second or the third child, and all kinds of challenges that will arise because of that. If I am thinking about that co-worker or the neighbor that drive me nuts because of their behavior. If as a young person I am a student and concerned about my student loan. If I am thinking about all of my troubles and problems, I am sure that Jesus Christ, who entered my world, who saw my messiness, will understand me and will feel exactly the way I feel. This is the greatness of Christmas. We shouldn't forget this when we start to celebrate Christmas. Jesus knows my world. Jesus knows that for some strange reason we humans become very selfish, greedy. We make everything about us. So He knows us very well. See, the offense of Christianity is that against all kinds of polished ideas about God and Christmas, all kinds of attempts to make God this all-powerful creature who is so far from us, lives behind the skies and the clouds like sometimes Sunday school kids imagine. Against this idea, we have the idea of a God who became like one of us, knows our anxiety, knows the way that we feel. So when sometimes some of us facing troubles or real problems in life, whenever we turn to God and say, God, you don't know how I feel, because you are God and I'm this weak creature. Christmas comes and tells us that that way of thinking is simply wrong, because God knows exactly what I am experiencing. Like the high priest, he knows my problems and he knows my ignorance and my weaknesses. This is something great. So the first point is that we learn today that Jesus is like us, a human being. Now the second point is Jesus is unlike us. In what ways he is unlike us? First of all, he is the Son of God. And second, he was appointed, he was called by God to be our eternal high priest. High priests in the Old Testament had to be called. They were chosen. They didn't agree on among themselves about who is going to fill that post or office. No, the high priest had to be chosen. I know in the US Constitution, all the judicial officers who are appointed, they are appointed for a life term. And the same was the case with the high priests. Once they were appointed, they were high priests until the very last minute of their lives. And Christ, like the high priest, he is an eternal high priest. First of all, because he is God, and we know God is eternal. And second, because Christ, as a mediator, offered himself as a sacrifice once and for all. And that covers everything, the past, the present, and the future. For this reason, Christ is our eternal high priest. Whenever we turn to him, he is our high priest. He presents us. He has us in himself, and he presents us that way. And I'm using the word mediator. You remember, the mediator is the person who intervenes when there is a conflict. So Christ is like a mediator. And the mediator is like the lawyer. Now all of us have had experience with lawyers in our lives. Whenever we had a case, we talked with the lawyer or we visited him. And then we agreed about how much we are going to pay to him. And he was supposed to present us, to defend our case. And then after either we lose or we win, he will go and continue his work with others, with other cases. Christ is a different lawyer, my dear brothers and sisters. First of all, we didn't go to him and we didn't ask him to be our lawyer, but he became our lawyer. We didn't pay anything to him, but he himself, he paid everything that was needed for our salvation. This is the greatness of Christmas. We have a lawyer, we have a mediator, who, having us in himself, presents us to God, offers himself as a sacrifice, and he is victorious, and we are victorious in himself. My dear brothers and sisters, today we learned that Christ is like us as a human being, and he is unlike us because he is the Son of God, the eternal high priest, our mediator, offering himself for our salvation. When we are going to celebrate Christmas in few days, let's remember these important lessons and celebrate Christmas with having God's blessings in our hearts. God bless you all. Amen.